Hi, I'm Anthony C. Ferrante, and you are listening to the Movie Raid Show.
It's time for the Movie Raid. Tonight's victim is director Anthony C. Ferrante, that has done many films such as the Sharknado saga series, Hansel and Gretel, and Boo, and amongst many others. Hello.
Hey, how you doing?
Fantastic, man. So what have you been up to? I know you've been very busy filmmaking currently. Is there anything that we can check out now or that has been recently released?
Yeah, I think the big thing is the movie that just was released in late September, early October. It's a horror movie I co-wrote and directed called Nix, N-I-X. It was an independent film, an independent horror movie, which is sort of about generational trauma, but it also has a monster to it. I think I've kind of described it as Ordinary People meets Videodrome. It's a very odd, unique movie where we defy expectations. So when you start watching the movie, you go, I know exactly what this movie is, and it just keeps getting weirder and weirder. So I'm really proud of it. We co-wrote it with James Abarty, Skylar Caleb, and Woodrow Wilson Hancock III. Jay and Skylar star in it. Dee Wallace plays the mom in the film. Michael Perry's in it. It's a very unique movie. It's out there on Amazon Prime and for rental, and Apple, and all the other various digital places. And we've done some screenings theatrically on it over the last couple months. It's been pretty awesome. I guess I'm really proud of what we pulled off with that movie.
Now, having going to like these particular platforms, is that really a better way, and having to adapt to like where to finance your film and where to promote it? Do you think these are the best?
Well, no, look, every project is different. Most of the movies I've done outside of, I'd say my first movie, Boo, there was already a distributor in place for the most part. So, whether it was Sci-Fi Channel or worked a lot with Asylum, done things for other networks like Tubi, or streamers like Tubi or Ion TV or Lifetime. And usually you have a place that's already taken the film. For an independent movie, you got to look at all the options. And we had a sales agent for Nix, and 1091 picked it up as distributor, and they wanted to do the digital release, which I think was a great plan. One of the things that we managed to do is they didn't really want to do anything on the theatrical side, so we retained the theatrical rights. And we've kind of been doing a lot of four-walling, and four-walling means, taking it to specific theaters. And I think that our theory was actually sound. We just didn't have the huge budget to really push it as deep as we wanted to, because Terrifier 2 did a brilliant job of being an independent horror movie that broke through the noise, was able to get into theaters, and people were craving something original. So, I think that our version of that, which was on a smaller scale, brought more awareness to the movie and pushed it to the digital outlets. But we were a truly independent film. So, any kind of additional marketing or, really going head first into theatrical, which does get expensive even just with making DCPs and stuff like that, you really have to be prepared for it. So the goal is just get the word out on the movie. And I think that from what we saw with how it went out on the digital platforms, did incredibly well for 1091. It was a good first step, because I think there's separate models for it. So it's like it starts off there, then it's going to do this, and then it's going to do that. Certainly we could have sold it outright to a streamer, get dumped into it with the noise right away. I like that what we did was more grassroots, and that, again, the Terrifier model I think is really going to be a boon for independent filmmakers moving forward, because there is a need for things that are original or different. Where we're at right now still is we're still in the zone of things that are sort of slam dunk kind of stuff, and things that are from established companies like Blumhouse and Atomic Monster, but a lot of other things that we're seeing are remakes and sequels or requels or whatever they want to call it. So the true original breeding new concepts and stuff is still going to come from the indie world, and I think there's going to be a desire for this. And then there is a market, because you get a good poster, you get a good trailer, you build word of mouth. You don't need to be the studios to get it out there. And Terrifier 2 proved that tenfold, and I'm so proud of the people that worked on that, because they showed there's a pathway. And I hope that means we get more original horror films out there that are edgier and different and over the top and break new ground.
How would you formulate a project if it's something that may not be the right chemistry for you to work with, despite how well your skill is and despite how well the money might be for this film? Because sometimes having the right director may be the wrong chemistry for that project, though.
I don't do movies unless I'm passionate about it. It's too hard to make a film, and certain people have certain strengths, and they like certain genres, and they won't veer outside of that comfort zone. And I feel like the things that have always interested me have been things that sometimes are a little more challenging. I always wonder, like, sometimes when I'm doing a project, like, oh, I never give myself a softball. It always ends up being way more ambitious. So, for example, I did a thriller with Pierre David that was originally called Triple Threat. I think they changed the name. Okay, it's a conventional movie about a Lifetime thriller type thing. It's a thriller. But then the added caveat was, it's about three sisters played by one person, which was Scout Taylor Compton, who was in the Rob Zombie Halloween movies. Doing just a simple thriller, okay, those are easy. I've done some of those. This is a movie where one actress is playing three roles and in the same scenes. But to me, it was exciting. How are we going to do this? How are we going to trick the audience? What are the little things we can do to really sell this illusion? And that gets me excited. Something like Nyx was an independent movie, and there wasn't a lot of money involved in it, but it was a chance to do something. There was no studio or network or anything involved. As long as we delivered on the title and the creature, and it was a horror film, we could do whatever we wanted. And that's what Jay, Skylar, and Woodrow and I all sat down and discussed before I came on board on the project. Let's do something for us. Some people are going to love it, some people are going to hate it, but let's make something for us, because at the end of the day, it's such an indie movie that it will make back its budget no matter what we do. We could do something that's just wall-to-wall gore and blood and monsters, or we can make something that's a little more deeper and meaningful. And so we went for deeper, meaningful, and monster and blood and other things. We tried to do something that was different. But I thought I was going to be the horror guy, because I started off as loving horror, and that was the direction I was going to, having written for Fangoria and doing makeup effects, and just growing up, I just loved horror. I also had an interest in comedy, because a lot of my shorts had humor to it. When Sharknado hit, it opened up different doors that I never expected, because Sharknado was more of a hybrid of different genres. It was kind of a horror movie, kind of an action movie, kind of a silly movie. It had this sort of dark sense of humor to it. It was cheeky at times, and we did 6 of them. And so I found that people, would reach out, I'd meet people to thank you for making it, because the movie made me happy. So it wasn't like, oh, I'm not scaring people, I'm making people happy. And I kind of liked that, something that came out of Sharknado. And that opened up the doors of doing different types of movies. And what I finally discovered in the last 3 or 4 years is that I like making different movies. If you want to talk in terms of college, I majored in horror movies. As a filmmaker, I'm a horror guy. I understand horror inside and out, and that's my major. But I've minored in other genres. And the fact that I can go off and do a regular Western or do a Christmas movie and have as much passion for those as I do everything else, it makes me feel good. I found my niche, which is I want to keep doing things that interest me and that I have a passion about. And so all these different genres are part of that, because you don't get bored. And to be honest, I think Sharknado came at the perfect time for me, because most of the movies people wanted to make in the horror genre were really becoming the same things. It was around that time, I think we're still in the tail end of the torture porn stuff, and just a lot of the sameness. And all these scripts that I have that I've been wanting to make for a very long time, no one wanted to make, because they were too dark or too edgy or ambitious or strange. That's what Nyx is. Nyx is very much kind of in line with my first movie, that it's just they're a little off. They're different. So if I can't make something that at least is trying to do something different, or you have a budget to do something that's really ambitious, then I'll go off and do Sharknado and have fun with that, and have fun playing with different tropes. Because also, despite doing 6 of the movies, I think people really only know the first movie, and maybe they've seen parts of the others. Each one of those movies is kind of their own animal. There's still one big, gigantic story that we finished at the end of 6. I mean, we chewed through genres. Third movie was a space movie, an amusement park disaster movie, a road movie, a White House destruction movie, and we crammed that all into one movie. Then the last film, we did time travel. We never got bored making those movies. It was always a new palette each film, and we actually got to shoot at the real locations that are featured in the movie, which it doesn't happen when you're doing a low budget film. I won't do something if I can't get my head wrapped around it. I have to have a passion about it, and so it has to be something that I read the script and go, I could do this. I've certainly turned down things that that's just not me. I can't do that. But usually I'll find a way in on everything.
When you have to change a direction, does it become more of a challenge for you, and how the story could be adapted, or can it be actually against the artist in terms of adapting the story to that when you have to change something?
Oh, well, like I said, I won't do something that I can't make any sense out of. I mean, if it's not something that I know I can get in the middle of, because I can definitely work on a project and fix things, or even the first Sharknado. Sharknado, Jacob Hare and I, who came up with the original title, when we got that first script, we were reworking it to kind of being what we originally saw it to be. I mean, it's structurally the same movie. A lot of our weird humor kind of wormed its way in there, which I'm still shocked to this day is still, we got that stuff through that first movie. It's a very odd, strange, quirky movie, despite playing it straight for the most part. Totally going from one movie to another, you look at what this film is. For example, I actually did a Christmas movie that's going to be airing in December, and it's a completely different style from Nix. I mean, Nix is an indie family drama. So when we did Nix, I wanted it to feel like an indie movie, and I stripped out all my inclinations for comedy, which, sometimes worms its way, and even wormed its way into Boo and Headless Horseman and Hansel and Gretel. There's very little humor in Nix. It's a drama, and so we focused on it being a drama with horror elements. And the one or two little respites of humor, which is a line or something someone says, is very, very targeted and very, very specific, but it doesn't take you out of the movie. It is derived from the situation. That's kind of how you approach these things. You go, this is what the tone is. And it's also, how you approach it with the actors, and it's what's in the script. The Christmas movie is light and frothy. It's very, very fun and playful, and so the actors that we hired, we were going for a big bouncy Christmas kind of thing, and it isn't really a big shift, because if you know what the story is and know what you're going for, and so those things come into play, and you just kind of tackle it and go, okay, this is going to be the look, this is what we're going to kind of go for, and it all tends to kind of work out in the wash. I've also been fortunate in the last couple of years. I think probably the last 3 years I've been hired to do second unit on a bunch of different projects as well, just to kind of fill in or if someone wasn't available. So kind of navigating the tone and stuff is kind of been ingrained, because you go in, you go, okay, how do I work for that project versus working what I would do.
What would you consider something to be a necessity? Is it really not just for yourself in terms of being selective, necessity for others to be selective, not just the type of genre of film or the type of film, but like rather the kind of scripts that they're putting out to get out there to help them get their story out? What do you think is more of a necessity to be selective of?
Look, it's a gift to make a movie. Anybody that wants to make movies understands that. And if someone wants you to make a movie, generally, for the most part, you try to find a way into it. But everything kind of starts with the script. And usually when I read a script that I haven't written, I usually see how things will play out. I'll get an idea, or I'll go, oh, okay, oh, I'm excited about this. Oh, I love the way these characters are written. And you start getting sucked into the potential of what that project is. For filmmakers that want to make movies, I always say, find something that appeals to you. Well, it could be something very small, but whether you're going to write something yourself or whether you're going to do something that's somebody else's material, you have to have a sense about it. You have to have a POV. You have to have a point of view on something. I have a very specific point of view about how characters should be. How do certain characters need to react in a situation, how they shouldn't react, and the things that I want to put out there. So look at these things and you know that this stuff is permanent. And so what am I putting out to the world that's going to be there? And again, I'm making popcorn, but it's still, that is a question of, I'm not going to do something that promotes something that I don't believe in. Actually, I can give you a very specific example. There was a thriller that someone came to me, which was actually really, really well written, but the ultimate backstory was about a high school coach, dealing prescription drugs to students, optimize their abilities. I had a daughter in high school at the time, and I just did not want to put that out in the world, even though it was fantasy and even though it was well written, and it's just that subject matter. I didn't want to put that subject matter out there. I even want someone to get a gleam of an idea that, oh, well, even though this is bad, but hey, maybe if I did take performance-enhancing prescription drugs, I can be better at school. It's just those little tiny things. It's not big, gigantic things that I think that ultimately matter. Real subjects, you got to be careful. Part of Nix is about, it came from all four of us who wrote this, was, we watched a lot of things happening with family members with addiction and trauma, and it was sort of a meditation on that and how people deal with it. And hopefully maybe somebody gets something out of this movie, even though it's a horror film, ends with some very horrific things. It talks about things that we were interested in talking about and couching it in a way that maybe somebody just even subconsciously is, get something out of it. Sharknado was about making people happy. I mean, it's as simple as that. Sharknado is popcorn. But throughout the 6 movies, I was very, very adamant that my characters didn't do certain things, or the characters that were written. Finn would not do this, and whenever we would have meetings about story, and someone would say, "Oh, Finn should do this and hook up with it," and no, Finn doesn't do that. And I was very protective of the characters throughout the course of the 6th film, because I wanted them to track, and I wanted them to stay consistent with what the audience liked about them.
Now, you've also worked with multiple writers in the course of your career. When it comes to a project, do you think that you have to divide between others' vision and as well as the version between the two, like defining between the version that you think would fit for you, but also you have to consider the writers that you're working with their versions of visions, because there's so many different variations to consider when working with the story if you have multiple writers?
Some things that are collaborative, that like in the Sharknado movies, where technically it's pretty much a writer's room between the producers, myself, development, and the network, and then someone's writing it and then doing additional things while we're shooting. And there's things, sometimes you get a perfect script and it just needs a little bit of adjustment. You deal with it. Being a writer certainly helps. I can target issues, and whether it's the writer dealing with it or collectively, the company or myself dealing with it, we usually get it to where it needs to be. It depends on project per project what that thing is. The ones I write, I'm very actively involved as a writer and continually writing through the course of making the film, because you can't sometimes do the stuff that's scripted, so you have to make adjustments. And the stuff where we have a writer, either you have the writer do it, or on the fly, sometimes you just got to go, oh crap, and then you got to figure out a solution to the problem and make it happen. I love collaborating. I love collaborating with writers. I love working with actors and trying to make something better. Even when it comes to crew, it's best idea wins. So making movies is a collaborative medium. Yes, there's usually someone guiding a ship, whether it's a director or sometimes you have producers that come in and they have a very specific vision. You have to collaborate. Working with your DP, you're working with your actors, you're working with your crew, whether it's costumes, props, makeup. Everybody has to work together to get the final thing, because these are hard things to do. It's not simple getting one of these things finished, especially, the time to make these things have been compressed over the last few years, where, maybe you had more time, now you have less time, and now you have COVID to deal with. And you have to worry about testing and masks and all the protocols. And so you don't get extra days because now we have to do that stuff. You now have less days. So you all have to be on the same page. Otherwise, everything falls apart. I think that's the mistake some people make that come straight out of film school, that it's like, I'm going to be a director and I'm going to just tell everybody what to do. And they forget that it is collaborative, and that's where sometimes that stuff falls apart, because they realize the issues.
Go ahead and plug in any websites or anything that we can check out now, or continue to promote Nick's.
Nick's, you can find the trailer on YouTube, Nick's Trailer 2022. Rent it or buy it on Amazon, on Apple, Vudu has it, Roku maybe, and then I'm not sure what the status is on a physical release just yet. I think that's part of plan 2. I have Western called Butch Cassidy and the Wild Bunch, which is probably going to come out first part of next year, which turned out great.
Very cool, man. Very cool. And there you have it, everybody. That is director Anthony C. Ferrante.
Thank you, everybody. I appreciate it.